Welcome back to the Mark Osler Retirement Experience. My name is Randy Cook, and each week we go through some of the things that you might be thinking about and worried about when it comes to your retirement, and we try to have a little fun along the way. Mark is here with us as we go through some of the items on today's show, and I'm going to go off the page a little bit here because we're in August now. And August is a hot month. It's a month where some kids go back to school, and that's on everybody's radar. But for some of you car nerds out there, this is a big month because all the new car brands and the new models come out in the month of August. So, Mark, are you a car guy? I'm not really a car guy. Tell me about your first car and if you're a car guy.
I am a car guy. I like engines and stuff like that. So the first two cars I ever drove were my parents' cars. They would let me use their cars. There was a Buick Riviera.
Oh, yeah.
And there was yeah, you remember that guy? And then I had
was that the one with the back window that went all the way to a point with the window? That was a crazy looking thing.
It was very interesting. And this was a two-door car, but it was big. And then my dad, he had an Oldsmobile touring sedan. And so I drove that thing too. And
chick magnet.
Oh yeah, of course. But I came from a GM family. My dad was a retired GM person, and so I would get the discount and buy the GM vehicles. And then the first car that was actually mine was a 1997 Chevy Malibu.
Now we're talking.
And that's when it first came back out on the market. But what I drive today, I drive something with a little bit more horsepower.
All right. Well, as you watch the new models come out, I'm going to throw some things at you here because there's going to be a new Honda Civic, okay? The Honda Civic has been around and has been one of those that has stood the test of time. They've been making Honda Civics. The first year was 1972. That just doesn't seem possible, okay? Now, we all know the Ford Mustang. That's been around since 1964. Everybody knows that. The Corvette has been there every year since 1953. You like pickups? The Ford F-Series pickup. They've been making that since 1948. I had the VW Beetle since 1938. And how about the Chevy Suburban, the ones the FBI runs? Okay, they probably didn't look like it back then, but the Chevy Suburban has been built every year since 1935.
90 years. Wow.
That's incredible. So these cars have definitely stood the test of time, and you're going to see the new models coming out this month on all of those. All right, we talk about finances here on the show. Mark, things that have stood the test of time. Many times you and I talk about things that come in and out of vogue, but what about things that are constant? You've been at this for an awfully long time, helping people retire. You've seen the things come in and out. What are some of the things that have stood the test of time for you?
This is interesting you bring this up because when we talk about things that stand the test of time, I'll just say in general, people like to look at the S&P 500, right? Because, if you put $1 in the S&P 500 100 years ago versus where it would be today, you get an understanding or an idea of where things might be, right?
Okay.
We talk about 50 years ago, whatever it might be. Well, the things that stand the test of time for me, I would call them preservation tactics. Let's talk about life insurance. It's been around forever, right? But there are certain policies that work and certain policies that don't work. And maybe you don't even know the ins and outs of those policies. Now, annuities. Annuities have been around for so long, Rainey. I don't know how long they've been around, to be honest with you.
Actually, the Roman times, they had annuities back in Rome. That's thousands of years ago. It's pretty amazing.
That's incredible. And an annuity, in the simplest terms, was a pension. And so now, here we are years later where a lot of people are doing deferred annuities because it was a way to have something different than, let's just say, a CD at the bank where you can, potentially have a different type of earning. So fixed index annuities, multi-year guarantee annuities. These are deferred annuities, and these are ways where maybe you can make a decent return and not have to put it into a CD where it's set at the bank, right? And because it's with an insurance provider, an insurance company, there's a little bit more of a preservation than there would be at the bank, just simply because of the limits of what the insurance company has to provide to put money and have money on the sidelines, right? So I would say these are really things that have stood the test of time. Now, when I look at the market, it just depends on your longevity. What can you do with? What can you do without? And I can work with that as well. And I can say that stands the test of time as well. You just want to watch out for those, we talked to them earlier, dropsies, right? What else do you see there, Randy?
Well, I think about the things that people want when they walk through your door have got to be pretty much the same than they were 30 years ago or 40 years ago. They say, I've saved this money, Mark. You've got to preserve it. I want to grow it, and I need income. Those three things, when people walk through the door, that's got to be pretty much the same thing that people have been asking for in retirement for the last how many years? I don't know, a long time.
Absolutely. You know, the two main ones that come up are income and taxes. Income and taxes constantly. So that's a big part of the planning process. And then when you talk about, you know, having money in the market, you know, you want to know, is this passive or active? And we only do actively managed portfolios. For example, let's say our pure equity model, that gets rebalanced on a quarterly basis and a lot of times reallocated as well. So there's things that occur there, and we can change or adjust the weights and measures however you see fit with us. So we're going to take what you want to do, and we're going to give you some advice, and you could talk to us about it, right? We could have a conversation. But with regards to taxes and income's a big one, and that's why a lot of people ask about income riders, because sometimes that could be a good fit for a portion of a person's income in retirement.
You just hit on another one there, too, is rebalancing and allocation. Those are things that have kind of stood the test of time, and you should be looking at your investments and saying, okay, am I out of whack a little bit here according to your risk level? Because if you put a whole lot of money in the NASDAQ, let's say, and it was rolling and it was doing really well, and then all of a sudden you take a look at your allocation and go, holy cow, I'm 80% out there in tech, and I didn't even know it. These are things that you should know about, and maybe as you get closer to retirement or in retirement, you might want to make some adjustments there.
Absolutely. And this is really important, just kind of going over this as a whole, because you want to understand, what can I deal with? What can I not deal with? And so let's go back to the year 2022. In 2022, the S&P 500 dropped about 18%, but the NASDAQ dropped 33%.
Wow.
So that's just simply because tech is more volatile. And when the S&P goes up and tech is doing well, tech usually does better than the S&P 500, and that's just the case. But when I look at our pure equity model with Market Guard, and I look at how we have it allocated, 50% of it is between financial services and technology, where 20% is technology approximately, and about 30% is financial services. So there's a little bit more, we'll just say a little bit more of a preservation tool for using the financial services, and then the tech just gives you a little bit more exposure to growth. But you need to balance this. And so that's why it's really important. So rebalancing, reallocating, looking at things, trying to understand what kind of income you need in retirement, because income is a big one. You know, when we talk about retirement, the third one, Randy, inflation.
Okay.
We have to plan for inflation as well. And the folks that planned for inflation 20 years ago while they were taking income, 10 years ago while they were taking income, are fine now. But the people that didn't probably felt the massive inflation that just shot up all at once, as opposed to a number of years, because we didn't raise interest rates, you know, slowly and swiftly. They just came all at once to kind of protect, because they were thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to fall into a recession here. We need to create a soft landing. But what they did was they just made it massively go up so fast, it affected everybody, and the market was flooded. And I'll be honest with you, if we don't prepare for inflation, we're going to have some issues, if not in 5 years, at least 10 years from now.
Well, there's some things that are kind of your foundation that have stood the test of time that we're going to want to talk about. And then there's certainly things that we're also going to want to talk about that are maybe a little bit more timely and are being affected by the economy, affected by the market. You know, 5 years ago, we weren't talking about getting good rates on CDs and annuities and things like that. Now we are, because of where the interest rates are. We weren't talking about Bitcoin 10 years ago because it didn't exist. So there's lots of things that happen that we could talk about, add into, subtract from, but there's certain things that are standing the test of time. Let's talk about both. All of it for your retirement plan. Give us a look on our website. Give us a call. Let's start talking about your retirement today. MoreToRetire.com is our website. And when you go there, you'll see our 5-step process there. You'll see what Mark does, and you'll see how he goes about it. You can listen to the show. We go through that as well. But give us a call. Let's put the pencil to paper here and start talking about your retirement in a way where we've got some facts and figures and you know what to expect. 984-300-1984 is our number. 984-300-1984. Talk about something that stood the test of time. What are the two sure things in life? Death and taxes. That one's been around for an awfully long time. Can't do a whole lot about the first one, but maybe we can do something about the second one, about taxes in retirement. Mark, there are things that we're saving in, like a 401k, that have some tax ramifications. Once you get to 73, and for some of us 75, you're going to take money out of that 401k. The government says you've got to, and that's going to come with a tax bill. So the one thing that we know, we're going to have to pay some taxes, but I don't want to overpay taxes in my retirement years. How do we find that middle ground?
Well, the middle ground is a little bit different for everyone. So let's just first talk about when you get a little bit older, maybe required minimum distributions, because that's one of the things that comes up with folks. They talk about age 73 or age 75, depending on what age you are based on your date of birth. So, for example, folks that were born 1960 or after 1960 don't have to take a required minimum distribution until they hit 75. Anybody 1959 or before, age 73. That's the minimum amount that the IRS says you have to take out each and every year. Usually it calculates to be about in the neighborhood of close to 4%. And what happens is that percentage ticks up a little bit each year. It's a factoring table. The factoring lowers a little bit each year, which means the percentage you have to take out goes up a little bit each year. So this is a conversation folks might have at age 65 and say, hey, I'm going to have an RMD, a required minimum distribution at age 75. Do I want to start doing some Roth conversions? Because you got this 401k savings plan over here. And do we want to start doing some Roth conversions? Well, yeah. I mean, I had a client come to me the other day, and you got some money in annuities over here, a fixed index annuity, a multi-year guarantee annuity, one with an income rider. And then this over here, you have your market money. You're managing some of it. Now you want me to manage some of the other money that your wife has over here as well. And so we're discussing how much you might want to convert to a Roth IRA. And the discussion starts somewhere between 60 and 100,000, and who knows? So we look at what can you handle? What are the tax ramifications look like now versus later? I can tell you, if you start converting later on, it's going to be a huge benefit for you based on your money, knowing that after 5 years of each conversion, there's income tax-free benefits there as well. So these are the conversations we have, and these are the discussions we have moving forward.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because if you're looking at me and saying you should probably convert some money of this 401k over and get it out of the tax wash, and say, how is this going to help me? And how is it going to help, secondarily, how is it going to help my kids? Because if you give your kids your 401k, you're giving them a nice thing, but you're also giving them a tax bill that's attached to it, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. And nobody wants to pay that bill. Uncle Sam loves it, though. They get an inherited IRA, so non-spousal IRA. So anybody that's not a spouse, when the inherited IRA is an inherited IRA, and it has to be exhausted with, my understanding based on the law, the way it was written, has to be exhausted within 10 years of the death of the person. So that doesn't mean you can't just go reinvest it and everything. But again, that does put some limitations on what you can and can't do. Well, why not convert it to a Roth IRA as well? That's another conversation that can be had, another subject that we can have a conversation about, because if you do start converting and you get to the point where you're age 74 and, RMDs are the next year, if you started doing this 10 years ago, you might have been able to convert all of it, take the tax burden now, and then later on have all the benefits. And then you have all this money that's growing, and it can grow deferred, and it's going to be income tax free for, if not you, your beneficiaries.
So if you were to do one of your seminars over at Ray's, and at the beginning of it, you say, how many of you think taxes are going to go up in the future? How many hands go up?
At least 3/4 of the room. And I actually do that. We talk about where tax is going to be at. And the answer in this particular case is C, higher, because they have to be. I think we talked about this on a previous episode. We were discussing the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, right? And we were talking about how now that it looks like maybe 90% of people that are drawing Social Security probably won't have to pay taxes. At least that's where they're coming up with this figure. And So I'm just going to believe it for now until we see differently.
Right.
But again, what does that do? It takes the trust fund of Social Security and exhausts it by 2032 instead of 2033. So this is another subject and conversation to have. And when I look at this and I look how this affects everything, we want to understand there's a chance we're going to have to probably pay more taxes at some point, some way, somehow, right?
Well, what if you were to do these conversions and when you get to age 73 or 75 and Uncle Sam comes knocking and says, okay, time for you to take money out of your 401k, and you go, already did it. And now you can kind of thumb your nose and go, nah, I don't have to take that money because I already did get it out of the tax wash. This is a pretty good position to be in. And we would love to discuss that with you and talk through it. If most of your money is in a 401k, and that really describes so many of us, that's the bulk of where our retirement money is. This should be a conversation you at least have. Give Mark a call. Let's talk through it. MoreToRetire.com is our website. You can start there. Learn more about Mark and the process. MoreToRetire.com. There's a place there where you can put some information. Say, hey, Mark, I'd like to talk about my 401k. And you talk about, getting me out of the tax wash. I want to just talk about that. Then we'll know where you want to go. You can also call us 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. All right, so 401ks. I mentioned it earlier that many of us, this is where we're saving our money. So one study looked at 58,000 401ks. That's a lot of work there, a lot of clipboards. And they found that many of these 401ks are guilty of underperformance and excessive fees. So now you're wondering, do I have a good 401k or not a good 401k? Well, this one here that they brought up is in a national airline, and it says it holds about $2 billion worth of assets and has underperformed, and get this, is charging 64 times more in fees than the comparable benchmark. So, Mark, part of your portfolio x-ray, what you do when people walk through the door, is to look at that 401k and dive in there a little bit. And this is what you're going to find. What do you find when you look in 401ks? Are people knowing this? Are you experiencing these high fees? And is there anything you can do about it?
Yeah, so a lot of times if you got 401k and you sent me over the statement and we run a report, we might be able to diagnose some of the expense ratios. The expense ratios are those things that you don't see. They're the costs that come from the mutual fund providers and things like that, where they're charging you this particular fee. But there's also other costs involved with 401k plans, and we just need to call the provider and ask questions. And it gives us some answers and some understanding about where you're getting hit with fees, what it's costing you, and are you really getting what you pay for? If you are separated from the company and you have a different job, and so you have an old 401k, you could roll that to an IRA, and I could open you up into a whole new world of different investments and a lower expense ratio. Now, we charge a fee for our management, but I think it's a fair fee in the sense that we want to make sure that we're doing something active for you and we're being really cautious with what you want to accomplish in your retirement. So the question is, how much are you paying for your expense ratio and your other fees in your 401k? And is it worth it? And most of the time, the answer is no, it's not, because you're limited with your investments and there is a lot of underperformance. I can't say it happens all the time. I would say that some plans have less expenses than others, but we don't know until we look at it.
So as you go in there and say, okay, let's dive into this 401k and let's see what's going on here. And then you see, well, this particular employer, there's some pretty high fees here, and I don't see as good a performance as what we could. So then you say, well, why don't we roll this money out into your own IRA? And then you have a lot more choices than the 15 or so that are in your employer's 401k. Can that automatically just open up funds or vehicles that are doing the same thing but might cost a little bit less?
Yes. And, if you work with me, you can work with whoever you want. Most of the time, it's a better situation to roll your 401k to an IRA with whoever you want to work with. If you work with me, everything is customizable. So we're going to come up with a plan and talk to you about what best fits and suits your needs now versus 5 and 10 years from now as well. And expenses, cost, investment options and things like that, they all matter. And like I said, I'm only one of 300 advisors in the country that uses Market Guard. These are proprietary blends of different things that we do for folks because we believe in it. We know the track record, and we know what we can accomplish for folks. Now, if you want to get a little more on the conservative side, you can look at preservation tactics like annuities. You could look at lifetime income riders because you want to build maybe a lifetime income for a portion of what you want to accomplish. You might want to look at long-term care provisions and needs. I am long-term care licensed. I could provide a long-term care type of annuity, could provide a long-term care insurance policy, but we could also talk about living needs benefits too. And living needs benefits are things that aren't needed for long-term care policies, but a lot of times they have benefits like activities of daily living, where if you can't do 2 out of 6. So every bit of this matters. So if you're going to talk to me about your 401k statement, I'm probably going to want to talk to you about more than just that, because when I do my job most effectively, it's when I understand everything about your situation.
You know, we've all heard of Tony Robbins, and Tony wrote a book not that long ago called Money Master the Game. And in there, and he's talked a lot about this on different television programs, about the effect of fees on your retirement. And he said an extra 1% in fees can pull 10 years worth of retirement money from you. Now, if you think about that, I mean, what do you need per year in retirement? Maybe $60,000, $70,000, maybe a little bit more. The average person spends about $6,000 a month in retirement. Imagine that, to pay $500,000 in fees. These could go into your pocket instead of somebody else's. And Mark, I don't know that people realize that. I don't think that they know. I mean, the people at Fidelity and Vanguard and all these others are real good people, but they don't work for free. There are fees that come out of these 401ks that are going in their pocket, and I don't know that a lot of people know about it.
No, and again, sometimes it's variable annuities too. Variable annuities have quite a bit of fees, and we discussed that at my seminar. A lot of times when I have a seminar, I finish with fees and talk about so many different things over the course of the evening. About 40 to 45 minutes is when I talk, but I go through a lot of information. A lot of folks tell me, wow, I learned quite a bit. I should have taken more notes and stuff. And that's great. But where it comes down to, and when we break down the fees and people are like, they feel it, it's like kind of this little tense area. So then I loosen it up by saying, I show a little slide of Hulk Hogan and I say, what you going to do? And here's the thing, the Hulkster just passed away, right?
Yep.
So Randy, I'll just do a quick, small little what you going to do, Hulk Hogan. Does that sound good?
That sounds good. Here we go.
What you going to do?
Pretty good.
Not bad, right?
You know, the people that I hang around with, I know a guy who does a really good Ric Flair, too. So I'm wondering about the people I hang with these days. They're all wrestling fans. You're listening to the Mark Osler Retirement Experience. Online, you can find us at moreToRetire.com. Go there today, moreToRetire.com. Find out more about Mark, and then give us a call. It's 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. 1984, and let's get talking about your retirement today. Lastly, we hear it all the time. What's the number one fear of people getting into retirement, in retirement? And it is running out of money. So there were 3 different surveys here of people who have over $1 million saved. Are they worried about the same thing? The people at the Spectrum Group found 33% of millionaires worried about running out of money. At UBS, 45% of people who have $1 million are worried about running out of money. And over at Lincoln Financial, almost 50%. So no matter who walks through your door, Mark, it seems like this is right at the top of their list. I don't want to run out of money. And having a lot of money doesn't seem to assuage that fear. So tell me about that. Is that what you find?
Yeah, I find some folks are worried about running out of money. Sometimes I'm worried about it for them, and they don't even realize it. So,
okay,
those aren't the fun conversations. Those are what we call inherited clients. Somebody that worked with that person before, and I'm inheriting the situation, trying to figure out how we make it work. But yes, this is a big conversation. And folks just they have this nest egg. They want to figure out how they can have the income they want in retirement and how they don't want to run out of money. And a lot of times, if there's a case like that, you probably want to look at an income rider as an option, and maybe one with inflationary measures and preservation, because if you can't do it with just the idea of maybe growth and preservation, you might want to look at what can give you some type of lifetime guarantee that you might feel better about. And I call it lifetime guarantee because that's what they're called. They're called guaranteed lifetime income riders. That's just in the line in the subject.
Well, when we think about our lives right now, if you're in your working years, Do you worry about running out of money? Probably not so much because you've got a job and you got a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks. It's when you get into retirement and that goes away that people worry about running out of money. So the answer to that is a good income plan, knowing that that money's coming in every month, that when you empty the bucket's getting filled up again. Let's talk about that kind of plan for you and that kind of confidence for you. Give us a call. Give us a look at our website, moretoretire.com. Again, moretoretire.com. There's a place for you to put some information in there. Mark will give you a call. We'll start the conversation. There's no obligation. You can also call us, 984-300-1984. 984-300-1984. And thanks for joining us on the Mark Osler Retirement Experience. Don't forget to like and follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll see you next time.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Mark Osler Retirement Experience. Mark Osler Retirement Experience is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Mark Osler Retirement Experience are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risks, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing carrier. This radio podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be considered as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Mark Osler Retirement Experience is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute legal or tax advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein are provided by third parties that have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mark Osler Retirement Experience. Market Guard is a firm that provides investment signals as well as portfolio allocation recommendations for a wide variety of model portfolios. Market Guard does not offer advice or enter into fiduciary relationships. Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.